What went on in that meeting, and what's the new number on salt?
Well, we didn't do anything with salt. I think, first of all, the president is just so very positive. He's talking about a $15 trillion investment in this country. He's talking about the 4.6% growth we've seen this quarter as well. And I think that what that does is it affects the future debt that this country has, the national debt. So we talked a lot about that, is how does this bill impact it? And we just heard some numbers that probably over 10 years' time, we're going to cut back some $8 trillion in our deficit because of this bill. That's a big number.
How do you get to $8 trillion when the Congressional Budget Office actually says that $2.4 trillion will be added to the deficit?
Yeah, the CBO was wrong with President Kennedy's tax cuts, with President Reagan's tax cuts, and Trump 45's tax cuts as well. But we get there by rolling back a regulation and by essentially growing the economy. And we think there's a lot of growth there. There's a lot of tariff money coming in as well that we're already seeing as well. So this is the Trump economy. We have confidence that we'll get at least 3% growth. I think the CBO is thinking 1.6%. So that's where it will happen, is by the growth in this economy.
Did the lawmakers in the room today talk about permanence when it came to business tax breaks, Senator? I know this has emerged as an important theme in the Senate. Research and development deduction, bonus depreciation, interest expensing. Make them permanent. It's going to cost more money. Can you get that done?
I sure hope so. And we did spend a lot of time in that conversation, and we've not settled on it yet. But there's certainly a lot of us in the room that want to get to permanence. We're weighing it back and forth as well, but that would be my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Senator, I want to go back to what you said a moment ago, which is that you didn't do anything on salt. Do you mean that is just not something that came up in this meeting, or that the Senate's intention is to decide that the $40,000 salt cap remains in place?
Yeah, so in an hour and a half with the president, we talked about salt for 2 minutes. I think we need to go back and reach back to Speaker Johnson and kind of figure out, is there any wiggle room there? But there's a lot of consternation for a red state person like myself that this is basically a $350 billion subsidy for blue states. So we're not done with it, but it was not the tip of this conversation. I think the discussion today was where the economy is, the great growth that we're seeing, that we're going to prevent the largest tax increase in American history.
What did the president have to say about Elon Musk when this came up, Senator? This is remarkable. He calls it disgusting. The bill's bankrupting America. Shame on those who voted for it. Is Donald Trump upset?
Yeah, I can't speak for the president on that particular conversation, but Elon was not important at all as far as this conversation goes.
Okay, fair enough. He's certainly worked his way into plenty of other conversations, though, here in Washington, Senator. And he is arguing that the bill needs to be killed. And I wonder about the chances of the bill actually meeting a death when it goes back to the House if too many changes are made. How aware are you and your colleagues on the Finance Committee, not just on the tax issues, but on Medicaid issues as well, knowing how badly some fiscal conservatives wanted those cuts that they fought for in the House? How much are you considering your wiggle room to really change these things?
Well, I think we wake up in the morning, we go to sleep thinking about how much wiggle room do we have. And certainly we're proud of what the House got accomplished, especially those last 48 hours. I think what I've been talking about is, can we get another $500 billion of spending cuts somewhere in this bill? That would be my goal, is a $500 billion in addition to what the House does. I think much more than that, and the House won't be able to swallow, but I think that we could move the needle just a little bit in that direction.
Questions about Medicaid and specifically provider tax changes. Right. Senator, did you get to this? I know that there are a number of senators who are concerned, who come from rural states, about the potential for nursing homes or rural hospitals to be closed. And did Medicare come up, an attempt to find waste, fraud, and abuse in the Maine program?
Let's talk about the provider tax, first of all. The discussions we've been having on the provider tax is we're not going to touch the nursing homes. We understand that maybe 40–50% of people in nursing homes are on Medicaid, so we're not going to do anything to hurt people in nursing home, people with disabilities. We certainly talk a lot about rural hospitals and how that they're struggling as well. So those are very much of top of mind, and we're not going to forget about those. The only really small conversation about Medicare maybe see around Medicare Advantage, the fraud, waste, and abuse going on there, that because of their upcoding, they cost American taxpayers some $275 billion more than if they just been on plain Medicare, so to speak. So there's a lot of concern on Capitol Hill about Medicare Advantage.
Senator, we spoke a moment ago about the Congressional Budget Office scoring of the tax bill that passed the House in particular, but was there conversation inside the White House today on the other CBO report we received about the $2.8 trillion that actually could be saved by the president's tariff policies? Did Donald Trump bring that up?
Well, certainly President Trump is very proud of his tariff policies and the income that's already coming in. I think that they released some numbers today. CBO maybe released some numbers that showed a much better outlook if you give us current policy, so to speak, as well. So yes, President Trump very proud of the tariff money that's coming in and think that there's more to come from that direction.
Is the parliamentarian going to be all right with this current policy baseline? We spoke earlier with Senator Elizabeth Warren, who launched an inquiry into this, calling it magic math. Do you know for a fact, Senator, that it'll survive the bird bath?
You know, I think it will. The parliamentarian is certainly their own beast up here. I'm a simple country doctor. Sometimes it's hard for me to predict what the parliamentarian will or won't do, but certainly there's others that do. And I have confidence in John Thune, our Senate Majority Leader, and others who are really good working with the parliamentarian. I have every reason to believe that we're going to be okay in that realm.
Senator, while we have you here on Bloomberg TV and radio, I'm also wondering about conversations you may have had with Senator Thune around your Credit Card Competition Act potentially being attached as an amendment to the Genius Act, which could get a vote any day now. Your colleague, Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming, was on Bloomberg TV yesterday about that prospect. This is what she told us, and we'll have you respond.
One of the things that I'm looking for is whether the Durbin-Marshall bill, it will be attempted to attach to the stablecoin bill. It's not about stablecoins, it's about credit card swipe fees, and that would be a heavy lift to take a bill that already has been carefully negotiated and add a new subject that is that controversial.
Is that your intention here, Senator, or could the majority leader talk you out of that?
Oh, I sure think that we want to vote on this bill. Look, this bill is going to give inflation relief to hundreds of millions of Americans. This is the one bill that would actually decrease in inflation, that this bill would save probably 2 or 3% every time you use your credit card. Look, Americans are being charged 7 times more than what folks are in the European Union to use that credit card fee. So as we're facing kind of some issues around the tariffs and supplies coming into this country, that this credit card bill would help slow down that inflation, and I think it'll be good for everyone on Main Street. It would be good for hardworking Americans as well. Look, the crypto bill is really good for wealthy people, but people back home don't care much about this crypto bill as opposed to really caring about our credit card bill. I think the credit card bill is the double win for the president.
So do you see the crypto bill, though, as the best vehicle for getting your credit card bill passed, sir?
Oh, without any doubt that it's a banking bill. This is a bill that fits with that as well. This was assigned to the banking committee. What I really like about the connection here is that this will open up the opportunity for stablecoin to go onto credit cards as well and open that up. So I think that's the win-win here if there was ever going to be a win.